Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. This Oklahoma Sooners football team going into 2025, it feels like a massive year for Brent Venables and this Brent Venables regime. But I think just as importantly, you start talking about ceilings of college football teams. Look, there are a lot of question marks that we have for Oklahoma going into 2025. We're going to talk about some of those as we work through this episode. There are also a lot of potential answers for Oklahoma going into 2025. And when you start talking about ceilings, when you start talking about questions getting answered and it all coming together, when you have a quarterback like John Mateer, when you have a defense that we think Oklahoma is going to have going into 2025, this team has a high ceiling. Now, is there kind of a wide variance of what the 2025 year could look like? Yeah, absolutely. But if you're an Oklahoma fan, at least you're going into 2025 knowing that, look, this can be a dangerous football team if it all comes together. Now, what needs to happen for this football team to reach its ceiling in 2025? That's the more important conversation that I want to get into. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Oklahoma fans, it really has been a blast talking this team ever since Brent Venables has taken over. And it's clearly one of the teams we love talking about. The amount of support a lot of the Oklahoma fans have shown for a really, really long time when the boys were just starting out doing this. That stuff means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, this is my constructed depth chart. It's written in pencil for all y'all. There's a lot of changes that could be made. Would love to hear some thoughts and opinions on that as well. Dill, without further ado, let's get into this one. You talk about ceiling. You talk about the best version of this Oklahoma team. You talk about a team that is dangerous in the SEC in 2025. You look at the quarterback position first. And why I want to talk about it is, one, John Mateer. We just did our top 10 quarterback rankings. John Mateer in the top 5 for both of us. There's a reality where John Mateer is the best quarterback in the country. And you start kind of taking a gander at what the SEC looks like. You look at teams like Georgia. You look at teams like Alabama. There are question marks at the quarterback position. You look at the 2025 college football landscape, a differentiator for a lot of football teams can be, what do they get at a quarterback? I'm looking at Oklahoma. There ain't many quarterbacks that I trust more going into 2025 than John Mateer for the Oklahoma Sooners.
And he's also a guy that might be able to cover up for some issues. I mean, the ability to throw off platform and his ability to create and make things work off schedule, if you will, I think was huge. And that's honestly, it's why they tried Michael Hawkins last year, because you could tell just with the lack of receiving production, with the lack of offensive line play, lack of running game, you needed a little bit more from your quarterback. Now, Michael Hawkins, I mean, certainly had his ups and downs, turned the ball over a fair amount. He's just not what John Mateer is yet in his career. So I look like John Mateer could be one of the guys to answer some issues that probably present themselves on this offense side of the ball. But at the end of the day, Oklahoma needs to get better at those other spots.
It's a perfect fit, in my opinion. Just like we talked about Carson Beck being a perfect fit for Miami, John Mateer is about as good of a fit for Oklahoma, because you're right. There are some question marks we have specifically on the offensive line. How do we look in pass protection? How can we run the football? John Mateer, with his athleticism extending plays, with his ability to run the football, 54 missed tackles forced for John Mateer in 2024. That is more than all the running backs for Oklahoma combined in the 2024 season. You're not talking about just a dual threat quarterback. You're talking about a legit difference maker running the football. You got question marks about pass protection. You got question marks about running the football. John Mateer can help answer some of those questions because of his athleticism at the quarterback spot. Number two, you talk about ceiling. You talk about the thing that held Oklahoma back the most, the offensive line. Now, I could go into some of the numbers of this offensive line last year, most notably the quarterback getting sacked 12.5% of dropbacks. That was dead last in the country. My bold prediction here, all right, what is the ceiling? What does the best version of Oklahoma look like? Dude, Michael, and the Oklahoma fans who've been following the boys, y'all know I very rarely do this. I'm not a true freshman starting at left tackle right away. Michael Fasusi, a different kind of cat, in my opinion. Now, I like that you're bringing someone like Derek Simmons, because he's the guy that's played a lot of football, doesn't offer you a ton of upside. Like, I don't look at Derek Simmons and say he's going to be a first-team All-SEC guy. I think a lot of Oklahoma fans understand that. Is Michael Fasusi going to be a first-team All-SEC guy as a true freshman? No, probably not. But the upside, what he can do, and what I saw from him in some of those All-Star games, going up against some of the best edge rushers that you see in the country, this kid is a box checker. If you're talking about the best version of this Oklahoma offensive line, I feel like it's with Michael Fasusi starting as a freshman at left tackle.
And physically very ready. And then you look
Yeah.
like, I mean, this offensive line, I think the interior looks pretty good. Like, I thought Eddie Pierre-Louis started playing well. I thought Troy Everett and Fabechi Nwaiwu, when Troy Everett was healthy for the past, like, he's probably been the most consistent player in this unit. And Fabechi was really good too. So look, I think the interior should be fine. And we'll
I think it should be pretty damn good. Like, I think the question marks you have are at tackle. Luke Blanco, I'm a big fan of him. I think the recruiting services are horribly low on him in terms of transfer portal rankings. He could start at left or right as well. At the end of the day, it seems like it's a better unit than it was last year. Like, we're talking about Spencer Brown. Like, and we had ample sample size of Spencer Brown at Michigan State not being a quality starting tackle. You kind of have to roll with him. You have to roll with some banged up guys that probably shouldn't even be playing tackle in the first place. Luke Blanco, young guy that's only getting better at tackle. Michael Fasusi, absolute bona fide stud as a true freshman. I like Logan Howland. Derek Simmons gives you some floor. It feels like you got more potential quality pieces to the puzzle.
Well, look, they at least have potential to be really good because Michael Fasusi can be really good. Because at the end of the day, last year it was like, can you cobble it together? Nobody was going to be a first-round NFL draft pick in that unit last year. Like, you hope maybe Sexton and Taylor would take some steps, but you probably had enough of a sample size to know they weren't going to be first-team All-SEC guys. Michael Fasusi and, frankly, Ryan Fajodi, too. They get.
I like Ryan. For Ryan Foji, he riser, dude. Right, and I think
he's probably more of a developmental guy for sure. But at least you're looking like Michael Fasusi. If he steps in and plays all SEC level or all SEC freshman at least kind of level, you give yourself a much better chance.
We're seeing these freshmen like Jordan Seaton started all 13 games for Colorado, and I get it's the Big 12 SEC. Jordan Seaton took some lumps the first 2 weeks, looked awesome the last couple of years. And like I look at Fasusi as a very similar in terms of quality tackle prospect, very, very similar. We saw Andrew Sprague from Michigan, as a true freshman, go start that bowl game against Alabama, look very good. These kids, it ain't 10 years ago. Like, these kids coming out of high school, they're different kind of cats that can play along the line of scrimmage in the SEC. Can Michael Fasusi be that guy? I think he can. We'll see what it looks like over the next couple of months. Number 3, and this wasn't really an Oklahoma problem because on paper, man, I was super high on these pass catchers going into 2024. They just didn't stay healthy. Can Deion Burks be that guy? Look, I'm super high on Ivan Carrion. Mike Evans vibes from him. I didn't want to say that. I had it written down in my notes. Wanted to leave that out. Let it slip in. I think Ivan Carrion can be really good. I don't know if you brought a ton of difference makers in through the transfer portal. I think Isaiah Satanga could be that guy. Deion Burks. And the reason I'm talking about Deion Burks is, one, by far, in terms of talent level, the most talented wide receiver in this room. Number 2, Dill, you go back to John Mateer, loves his slot wide receivers. And you don't got many better ones in the country than Deion Burks when he's healthy. Can he be that wide receiver one? Can he be that guy? We talk about this all the time. Sorry, I'm being a little long here. Quarterback, wide receiver battery, do you have one? Do you have that QB1, wide receiver one? Like, hey, when we need a big play, we know what our connection looks like. John Mateer, Deion Burks could be that connection that Oklahoma is looking for in 2025. And if they reach their ceiling, it's going to be that connection.
You saw them kind of get to that. I mean, I think the big question, frankly, for Oklahoma is what are they going to do to replace some of their downfield threats? And you look at a guy like Jaden Gibson, Ivan Carrion, you're probably right. Is the guy you're looking for to be that guy, because you don't really have a ton of questions about what they can do creating in the middle of the field, because, frankly, that's where Deion Burks thrives, and that's where Isaiah Satania thrives. So what can they get on the boundary is probably going to be the question I need to see answered to see how good this Oklahoma team can be, because they can work the middle, I think, with that wide.
Yeah. Jaden Gibson, Ivan Carrion, they're probably the 2 other guys to watch in terms of like really being difference makers in the wide receiver room. Number 4, I was kind of playing around with this idea. Look, Oklahoma's pass rush in 2024 was elite, and you sacked the quarterback almost 10% of the time. This top 10 in the country. Can it get better in 2025? Because I look at, I mean, one, you're returning all your best pass rushers, right? R. Mason Thomas and Grayson Halton were definitely, but who do you know who led Oklahoma in quarterback hurries in 2024? Because it was Grayson Halton on the inside. Dog rushing the passer. Yeah, dog rushing the passer. R. Mason Thomas is only getting better. Like, we saw him take a massive step. Can he take another step? Another name, PJ Adebawore, going into year 3. Look, we knew he wasn't a year 1, year 2 guy. We knew we'd have to throw him in the slow cooker and kind of get him ready. Year 3 was always going to be the year. Can it be the year for him? You're bringing Marvin Jones Jr., who we all know is a former 5-star with a lot of talent. Danny Okoye, another guy that we knew was a slow cooker guy. Can he be ready? I mean, throwing David Stone too. The amount of juice and the amount of potential as a pass rush unit, I think it can be better in 2025 than it was in 2024. It was damn good in 2024. If you can rush the passer, you're going to be a very good defense. And I think Oklahoma's going to be able to get after the passer regardless if Jim Knowles is coaching this defense or not.
I mean, this is what gets you excited about what Oklahoma can be. Is I look at the secondary and I look at the defensive line, especially. No questions about either of those units. I think they're experienced. I think they have the top end talent. And you said it, like the way Jaden Jackson played early, the way Grayson Halton's played as a younger player, even PJ Adebawore, like, I mean, didn't play a ton his first couple of years, but started to play a little bit more last year. Like, I think you're seeing the play strength kind of get closer to where it needs to be. His ability to be physical and play more steadily, if you will, at that position. Like, and then the guys, you know what you're getting. Like R. Mason Thomas, I think
he's awesome.
I mean, he might be like one of the best pass rushers in the country. Like the way he was playing last year, and again, maybe he doesn't have the premier length if you just look at him, but his juice, his burst off the edge, like really, really dynamic.
Those 4 names: R. Mason Thomas, Marvin Jones Jr., PJ Adebawore, Danny Okoye, all coming off the edge. What if they all get better? What if every single one of them gets better in 2025? This pass rush unit is going to be gross. And what I love about it is on the inside, you got run stoppers. If you want an elite pass rush, you got to stop the run. I couldn't think of a better duo in terms of 2-gap and being physical at the point of attack and stopping the run than Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams. And you have David Stone emerging, Grayson Hall, an elite pass rush. This could be a problem for a lot of teams in the SEC. Number 5, and probably the biggest question mark you have, what does Oklahoma's ceiling look like? You got to replace Danny Stutsman. Look, you ain't going to replace him with one guy. Danny, as much as I would love to have Danny Stutsman grow on trees, because I don't know if there's a player I love watching play football more than Danny, you can't replace him with one dude. I look at Oklahoma in the linebacker, ton of talent, and you're bringing Kendall Daniels, who I think will play linebacker, might play the cheetah role. He's really, really athletic. That could do a lot of different things. Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, maybe even Sammy O. A lot of young guys that probably would have played more had Danny Stutsman not stayed another year. You're not going to get a Danny Stutsman on this defense, but can you replace him by a committee with a bunch of linebackers that are just getting better and have a lot of upside? That's probably the question. I think that's Oklahoma's best chance at replacing a guy like Danny Stutsman.
I do like the way they've brought Kip and Kobe McKenzie along. Like, I feel you're seeing the improvement. Like, they're just playing more heady. And again, like, it was an easier job when you had Danny or when you were playing next to Stutsman just because of how much ground he covered, how smart he was. Like, so we're going to need to see one of them kind of take control of his defense and be the guy a little bit. And that'll still left to be proven. But like athletically, Kip Lewis, his ability to take on blocks, be physical in the box, taking big steps, Kobe McKenzie, just his understanding of that defense. I feel like being more steady, being able to make more plays, taking big steps. So I like where they're both going. Again, that's probably the one question on the defense side of the ball is, are they going to be able to step up and kind of take over to an extent for Danny Stutsman?
Yeah, and it's almost like you talk about replacing Danny Stutsman. I think you got the players to do so. Now it's like, can you replace the not only leader, but like the mind of Danny Stutsman? Because there were times you watch Oklahoma's defense, Danny Stutsman is like dragging players to the spot they need to be aligned in. Who ideally you don't need to have that because all these guys are now a little bit more veteran. Like when they were young, when Kip Lewis was a young buck, Danny Stutsman grabbed him by his collar and say, "Hey, we got to be here." Maybe you need that less because guys like Kip and Kobe and Sammy are a little bit more veteran. But who can be that guy? That's probably another question too.
And
Dill.
also, Daniels has played a ton of ball in a system that, as much as they don't bring the talent they're supposed to bring in Oklahoma State, I do think Gundy's done a pretty good job developing guys and getting them playing really solid
Yeah,
football.
yeah. I admire he's. I think he's a freaky dude. We got to pick a position there because he bounced around safety backer. He's going to be a really good football player. Again, you start talking about best case scenarios. There's some high upside on this football team. Now it's got to come together. I think most notably on the offensive line. And Dill, if it does, this is going to be a really dangerous team in 2025. Biggest question mark by far will be following spring practice, fall camp. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.